So lately, I've been getting a lot of questions and emails, and I've also been listening to a lot of podcasts that have been talking about different things that kind of caught business owners by surprise. And it made me realize that while we talk a lot about due diligence on this channel, it's often just with respect to doing due diligence on a business that we're going to buy. So today, we're going to broaden the topic, and I'm going to be talking about 8 different areas of small business stuff that many small business owners fail to keep an eye on. So stay tuned. I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win. All right. So today we're talking about due diligence. Now, the reason that we have due diligence as a topic when we're talking about buying or selling businesses is because if someone's going to buy a business, we're talking about a very big, valuable transaction, right? We're talking about a lot of money being spent, both in equity and borrowed money from a bank and debt that's being encumbered maybe through a seller note, right? So we're talking about a big purchase. And so because it's such a big and important transaction, it is, worthy of a lot of scrutiny, right? But now, when you are a business owner and you're operating a business, there are all kinds of things that are big and important that sometimes people don't pay enough attention to. So, this week we're going to be talking about the 8 internal areas that are, worthy of a continuous due diligence mindset for business owners and operators. So these are areas of the business that you need to create processes around constant vigilance in order to be keeping an eye on this stuff because any one of these 8 areas, if not properly monitored, could create a big bad black hole that you don't see until boom, something crazy big happens, and then all of a sudden you're in crisis firefighting mode and maybe fighting to survive as a business owner. Next week, we're going to talk about external factors, right? So let's kick things off. And once again, I do not have the budget for B-roll cuts with numbers flying across the screen. So I'm going to have to ask you to indulge and engage your imagination. So number one, and if you want to imagine maybe like one piece of fruit appearing on the screen with a big number one, I don't know. We're going to be talking about hiring and human resources. So everyone knows that if you're going to hire a person, you have to do the best you can to find the right person, and you have to also make sure that you don't hire like a crook, right? Someone who's going to come in and steal from you, or somebody who has an absolutely terrible reputation or a criminal record, or that would be a bad thing for you if customers or other employees found out, right? But here's the thing, and what reminded me of this particular one was we had a news article, or a series of articles going around here about a little over a year ago, because somebody finally noticed that the local school district, while they did a lot of background checks on people when they hired them, once they hired them, they never looked at the person again. So people were beginning to realize, hey, you hired someone back in 1995. It's been almost 30 years, and we never do any follow-up background criminal checks on these people that are around our children all day, right? So, hiring in human resources, you need to hire the right person, but you also need to have some kind of process in place for making sure that nothing bad is going on with the people that you've hired. And so this is why, for example, some organizations will actually have a process in place for doing continuous or updated sort of background checks or investigations on people. Now, There could be very well be some legalities to this, depending on where you happen to be. There could be some rules. Um, and so check it out. Make sure you ask. You don't want to do anything that you're not supposed to. But having some sort of process where you keep an eye on what's going on with the people in your business is really important, because obviously if something changes in the life of that person, if somebody gets convicted of a crime, or if somebody gets charged with something, or if somebody ends up in some kind of serious legal or financial trouble, there could be knock-on ramifications for you and your business. And so at the very least, you want to have some kind of process in place, or at least documentation maybe, and again, talk to your lawyer about what's legal where you are, where people sign something that says if they get into certain circumstances that they have an obligation to disclose it to you, right? If it's going to potentially have an impact on the business. So, for example, if you are in any kind of financial services industry, somebody declaring bankruptcy, it could have a serious impact on things relating to the licenses of your firm, or their own individual ability to hold licenses, like to give financial advice or something like that. So having a due diligence process, a continuous one around employees, is an important one. The next one on my list here is simply a broader term: financial audits and internal controls. So you want to make sure that you have processes in place that are going to help and make sure that it becomes very difficult for somebody to commit fraud or stealing or steal from you, right? And so this is kind of related to the employee one. In fact, one of our past guests here on the show, Rick Nicholson, has a book on Amazon, and I put it into my bookstore, which you can find over at dcbbooklist.com. You can scan that QR code. It's called The Art of Restaurant Theft, and it's basically a guide to steal from a restaurant. So if you are a restaurant owner, it basically shows you the 70 ways that employees might steal from you. And so, again, it's all about creating processes and controls to make sure that people are not doing that, right? And so I actually sold a bar. Well, back in my business broker days, I helped somebody buy a bar, and I guess I sold the bar too for the other party. Um, and it was good, profitable business. And then very shortly after the transaction occurred, the buyer let me know that in implementing some new and different inventory controls, they discovered somebody who had been stealing. And so the actual profitability of the business was quite a bit higher than the seller believed. And so, we talk sometimes about hidden liabilities in a business. This was a hidden asset, right? All you had to do was buy the business and fire the thief, and you'd earn more money. And so there can be real value in making sure that you've got proper processes around audit control, internal processes. One of the favorite ones that I like, which comes from the banking industry, is the mandatory vacation. And so the reason behind this is that if somebody in a bank is playing games with fake accounts and stuff, and moving things around and like hiding things, if you have a mandatory 2-week holiday every year, that means that somebody else has to fill in for their role. So if they're doing some kind of sleight of hand with accounts to hide some impropriety, it usually can't survive somebody else coming in and doing their job for a couple of weeks. It would become evident that there's something wrong with some of the things going on. So that would be number two. Number three, technology and cybersecurity. So, I know that I'm not an IT guy, and so I trust in certain things that I've been taught, some training that I've taken around how to best use technology. And I also know that if you're using Google, for example, it is very unlikely that some hacker is going to bust the encryption that Google uses to protect your data as a small business. What is far more likely is that someone is going to trick one of your employees into clicking some link that will, end up giving them access to important data, right? And so the question then is, how are you going to protect your technology and cybersecurity? You should have some kind of plan. You should have some kind of backups in case you become compromised, and maybe there should be some kind of ongoing training or discussion with employees about how to spot phishing attacks and that kind of thing. Number four, legal compliance and contracts. So Poorly drafted contracts that have holes in them, open you up to potentially losses in the event that there's some kind of dispute with a client or a supplier, for example. And so you want to make sure that the paperwork that you're using works. And what I have learned over the course of time is that it doesn't cost a whole lot of money if you've already got legal contracts that are created just to have them reviewed, right? Because a lawyer is going to read those and probably point to different areas where things could be tightened up or not. Or you can actually sit around with your staff and just discuss the contracts that you have, because these are the people that use them every day with the customers, like salespeople, for example. And so ask them, what are the most common problems that creep up in our relationships with our customers? Do people sign contracts and then like 7 days later want to change an order? Could we add language into the contract that addresses that? Right. So what are the common problems? And then when you get that kind of feedback, then you can kind of take those highlights to the lawyer with your contract and you can say, I'd like you to review this. And here are some of the new issues and concerns that we have that we might want to address in this contract. And so it could very well be a process that you want to have happen on an annual basis. Maybe part of a pricing review agenda that you run, on a regular basis is also the contract review and discussing issues that come up with customers, for example. Um, Number 5, so again, remember, I have no B-roll footage. So, imagine 5 monkeys, chasing, some peanuts or something like that. So, marketing, branding, and customer perception. So, you have a business and there's a certain way that you want to be perceived. And marketing is not just what your advertising says, right? Marketing is how you present yourself to a marketplace. And so over time, here's what happens is that, perhaps some new people come into your company. They are not fully versed or fully informed about how the um, full saturation of the marketing message is supposed to be embedded within your organization. And so you end up with things like voicemail messages that don't conform to the brand image or story that you're trying to promote. So, if you've got marketing that's all about, being the local, folksy, fella next door kind of business, and then somebody puts a voicemail message that's very corporatese, for example, then there's an incongruency there, right? Because people have this certain expectation of what your corporate culture is like, and then it isn't mirrored in what people are putting on their voicemail. And so, really great marketers will know that the advertising, the story, all of that stuff leads people to your door, and then that same kind of message of branding and marketing message has to continue through the organization. And so, you need to make sure that it is in fact uh, you are fully saturated in whatever the message is you're trying to create, right? And so having a review of some kind is something that is important, because if people find these, incongruencies, it's like a cognitive dissonance thing, right? Where, and we've all suffered this, where we've seen, a certain messaging for a company, and we feel, or we get the impression it's going to be a certain way to deal with them, and then we get there and it's not like that at all. And it kind of makes you feel like, can I trust these people? Like the messaging is off. So marketing, branding, customer perception, this is another area that people often fall down on. And it can grow worse and worse over time if nobody's paying attention. Number 6, insurance coverage. So, when you get started, someone might tell you you need a certain kind of insurance and you go and you buy it and then you just renew the policy every year. So I'm a big fan of insurance brokers who, you know, that can tell you. You can sit down with them. You can talk about your business, how your business is changing. You can tell them how your business is growing, what new things you're doing. A good broker is going to be asking all kinds of pertinent questions that are going to lead you in one direction or another. And then it is quite possible that over the course of time, the type of insurance and the limits and et cetera are going to change. I have a good friend in the construction industry, and they went from one insurance policy to a less expensive insurance policy and then they had a piece of construction equipment fall over into somebody else's building. And luckily, they were covered. But what they realized when they went through that insurance claim is that the first insurance policy that they had that was more expensive had a certain amount of coverage per incident with a deductible, right? And the new cheaper policy had a certain amount of coverage per year. And so when they made the claim, they realized, hey, if a second piece of equipment has an accident, our insurance is now used up for the year, right? And so be careful with what you buy. And this was literally a case where somebody had made a decision based on price shopping without fully understanding exactly what the difference was between the two policies. So you want to make sure that you have someone you can talk to who can really help you understand your business risks. Number 7, environmental and social responsibility. So, there's a lot of stuff over the last few years about ESG, and, diversity and all that kind of stuff. And whether you have one feeling about it or another, the fact of the matter is that there are really bad things that can happen to your company if you violate a law like about environmental pollution or something like that, right? And it becomes even worse if people find out because now you got a marketing problem too, right? And so, like, whether you think that, social responsibility, equity, diversity, and all that kind of stuff is important or not, um, it's really what does the public that you serve believe? And because it ties into marketing, right? And so pay attention, like, take a look, like, you know, your business is yours. It's yours to run how you want. The question is, what are your long-term goals? And is this kind of thing important to the constituency that you serve? Right. Um, and, I happen to think that different people from different backgrounds may have different points of view that could certainly be valuable in any business. So there's value in this stuff. So pay attention to it. And if you feel that you might be exposed to somebody who wants to point out that you're failing in some way, then the best way to defend your business against this kind of thing is just to be preemptive, which means going through a process and asking yourself, if I were a critic or if I had, an axe to grind with my own business about some of these topic areas, what would I be pointing to and what would I make a fuss about? And that way you can kind of think about it, and say, oh, well, maybe we should make some changes to kind of address some of these things. With with any kind of threat from a PR nature, it always makes sense to sort of try to play devil's advocate, and think about where your vulnerabilities may be and how you might make different decisions or choices that might put yourself in a better footing. So again, this is part of a process. It's not a one and done thing. You want to incorporate this into some kind of annual review or something like that so that you're always revisiting it. And as the times change, different things are going to be making the headlines, right? And so, a couple of years ago, we were all talking about electric cars, and how that tied into sustainability and all this kind of thing. I saw a gentleman speak last week who was from a shipping company, and he was talking about environmental and sustainability in a very interesting kind of way because we often think about glass bottles, for example, as being recyclable or refillable and generally more friendly to the environment. But he was talking about, shipping costs and carbon footprint and all that kind of stuff related to heavier glass packaging versus lighter plastic packaging, right? And so, whether you're using glass or plastic to put your stuff in that you're sending to your customers, um, being prepared for somebody to attack you on that front with, yeah, we actually are worried about this too. We share the planet with you. And these are the reasons why we've chosen to go with this. And it's not just because we're going with the cheapest solution, but if you look at all of the factors, here's why it's actually a better solution, right? And so it's about being prepared. Uh, Number 8, prospective investors. So yeah, so this is another internal thing, and this one I added to the list because I got a question. It was a comment in a YouTube video from a guy named Louis, who said that somebody had approached him saying, "Hey, I've got some money available, and let's go buy a business together." Well, choosing the right investors, you need to ensure that you've got aligned goals and values, and that, the way that you're going to operate the business together, or the way that that investor is going to operate with you as a business owner, is going to be in alignment, and you're going to avoid conflict. I did an interview with a fellow who owned a pub, and pubs are notoriously difficult to finance with traditional bank financing, for example. And so he had raised a bunch of money from private investors, and most of the investors were really great to work with. And not only did he get their money, but they took great pride in the fact that they had invested in the pub, and would like conduct all their business lunches there. Like they would, every time someone said, "Hey, let's get together for a lunch and talk about it," they would say, "Great, you should come down to my pub," right? And they would be proud of the fact that they had made an investment, and they would bring customers through the door, and it was awesome. Except one guy. One guy started to show up and ask questions of the manager and talk to all the staff, and started pointing things out to people, and started to make himself into a nuisance, and really became like a stick in the gears of the business, and kept interjecting himself uh, as though he were sort of the day-to-day main operator manager, even though he had taken this role as a like passive investor for a relatively small amount of money, given the overall investment in the pub. And so when it came to actually buying the investors out and returning their money to them, he was the first guy, right? He got his money back first, so that everyone can give him a pat on the back and wave goodbye, right? And so you want to make sure there's some alignment there with your prospective investors and what they envision their role in your enterprise is going to be, and as well, what is their history with investing and business and their reputation. Are you going to be hitching your wagon to somebody who, you know, um, has some kind of bad rap out there about something they did one day? Anyway, talking about investors is going to be a whole video on its own. Pay attention for that in a couple of weeks. We're going to be tuning into that. And if you want to get into the world of buying a business, you should definitely be signing up for my program, which is called Business Buyer Advantage, over at businessbuyeradvantage.com, where I teach you the whole process. We follow a case study, and there's all the kinds of bonus modules. And speaking of investors, there's a brand new bonus module that I'm working on right now that will be released before the end of the year. And the way it works with Business Buyer Advantage is anyone who becomes a student of Business Buyer Advantage is in forever. And any new module that ever gets added, you get access to it. And normally, what I've done is whenever I've added a tremendous amount of new content, I've usually bumped up the price a little bit. So the value just keeps growing. And the earlier you get in, the better off you are. And it is the prerequisite to my group coaching program. So if you're looking for new ways to learn about this process, if you want to buy a business and be independent and secure your family's future and all that kind of stuff, and join the people that have already taken the program. It's got all kinds of positive reviews that you can read if you click through to the sales page, and it's all real. Like, it's not pie in the sky stuff that you could do this, you might do this might possibly happen. It's all grounded in what is probable, not what is possible, right? uh, Dreaming of what is possible is a great mindset for visiting Disney World. uh, Dealing with what is probable is the best way you should approach business. That's my attitude anyway. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. We'll see you next week when we're going to talk about external areas of due diligence that many small business owners are missing out on or forgetting to think about. Cheers. So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.